minute till broadcast. Seconds till broadcast. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin transmission.
Fighting for freedom every day.
Let me tell you, the response to the show has been absolutely amazing. People can't believe that a young conservative millennial continues to fight for constitutional principles, traditional values, and talks about issues that some are even afraid to talk about. But we do it because we understand the importance of this. And now we're seeing it absolutely blow up all across the nation.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
You're darn right it is. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. Great to have you along for the ride today on a Monday, kicking off a brand new week, although the day's over, so you can celebrate just a little bit. But thanks for hanging out with us here on the Voice of Reason. I'm Andy Hoosier, broadcasting live out of the heartland of America here at the flagship station of the Big Talker KQAM in Wichita, Kansas. All over the country, we have a lot more stations that are planning on jumping up and jumping on the show here in the next few weeks. More information to come with that, and we appreciate that very much. We'll talk about that here in just a little bit. We have so much to get to today. By the way, we're broadcasting live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, all that good jazz. Plus, you can go to the website at HoosierReason.com. You can see the live stream there, leave some comments, and talk about everything that we're chatting about here on the show. I'm so excited for our guest today, and I want to get to him in just a second. We've had him on the show many times before, and I love our conversations, very much so. We have a lot of things that are kind of up in the air. We see increase in numbers of the COVID-19 virus right now. Why is that? We'll get to that in a second. Or is it just because we have, I don't know, maybe an increase in testing? That would be crazy.
It is totally absurd.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. I don't know. So we'll cover that in a second. Plus, we have the Trump rally that everybody seems to be talking about. The Republicans are like, hooray, look at that. We still got a lot of, which is true. He's got a massive amount of numbers at the rally. Joe Biden can't fill a coffee shop. And they give him a hard time because he can't fill up a 19,000 person venue when people are still concerned about the virus. I find that fascinating. So we'll get to that here in just a minute as well. But let's get to our guest because we have limited time. And this is, you want to talk about unveiling the layers of the onion, talking a little bit deeper, which we love to do here on The Voice of Reason, because that's what we need to. We need to understand more so than just a bumper sticker argument. We need to learn more than just a 130 character tweet or 220 characters, whatever it is nowadays. But I'm excited. And the fact that he comes out of a place that usually isn't friendly to conversations that I like to have, at least, because they're normally on the other side of the aisle. He's a professor at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And his new book, War for Eternity, Inside Bannon's Far-Right Circle of Global Power Brokers. Anybody, show of hands, remember the name Steve Bannon? The guy that runs Breitbart News, the guy that was the White House chief analyst for President Donald Trump at the beginning. He was labeled a white supremacist, a radical, a crazy wackadoodle guy. And this guy, Professor Ben Teitelbaum, was able to get inside and talk to him, have numerous different discussions with him, and write a book on his inner workings. And I am so excited to dive into this. So let's bring him on here. Professor Ben Teitelbaum hanging out with us here. Ben, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be with you again, Andy.
Oh, it's so good to talk to you. I love our conversations because we've talked about this before. When it comes to activism, student activism, I mean, you see it in Boulder, Colorado, to where there's a lot of friction between political groups, and you're one that kind of likes to bring them together and have discussions. I love the fact that people can sit down and actually have a deep dialogue and maybe learn something and move forward in a progression manner together. And I love that about you. So thank you for that very much.
Well, likewise. Andy, I was just sitting here thinking about the first time we spoke on the radio. I think this was, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I think after that conversation, we were both both probably thinking like, wow, that went a little better than we expected, right?
It was. I remember the first time when I got a hold of you, yeah, I was like, oh man, he's a professor at Boulder. This is not going to end well. I'm like ready for the battle guards or ready for the war cries. And no, it was fantastic. And you've been a great friend since. And congratulations on the book, by the way. This is fantastic. And how is it going so far? What's been the response right off the bat?
Man, I tell you, if you write a book about politics, you got to be ready for incoming fire. And I've made the kind of unwise decision to write a book that has no constituency, really. The not so secret of the publishing world is that people buy political books that tell them what they already think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can tell somebody what they already think in a different way, it'll sell great, get a provocative cover, you know. But I've written a book that really doesn't let anybody off the hook the whole time.
Sure.
And you know, it's been mostly really good responses, but you know, the people who that upsets, boy does it upset them.
Oh, I can
we
imagine.
all want our simple explanation. You know?
Sure, I can imagine. I mean, Steve Bannon, just the name Steve Bannon is a very controversial name for the get-go. So either you're too hard on him because he's a great, wonderful guy, or you're not hard enough on him because he's probably like the most evil, horrible human being on the face of the earth, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is a special figure. I mean, I'll assume like you do that your listeners remember him, but this is a guy who really in the opening months of the Trump White House, you know, Saturday Night Live was depicting him as the Grim Reaper,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's this big picture investment, I think, across a lot of America in portraying him in a particular way. You know, for some people, you know, he's the brains of the Trump movement, and he's the reason Trump was elected. And so for people who are really upset about Trump, you know, they kind of pin it more on Bannon than they do the president.
Sure.
You know, they say he's the reason for everything. You know, he's the person who got Trump in the White House. He's the reason for everything that's bad. And you know, so these are powerful impressions, right? These are the sorts of things that a lot of people get behind and cling to pretty tightly as they're trying to make sense of the world around them.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Well, let's start at the beginning here. What made you interested in Steve Bannon, and how did you get your foot in the door to be able to sit down and have numerous hours on end meetings where they sit down one-on-one with Steve Bannon?
Yeah. Well, I was interested for a long time. I've kind of in a nerdy way. I've followed one particular kind of ideological school. I wish it had a weird name, but it doesn't. It's called just traditionalism, but with a capital T.
Mm-hmm.
And I've followed the ways that it has occasionally appeared in like nationalist movements in Europe, in particular, on the right. And it's not a big phenomenon. It's not the sort of thing that would ever win a bunch of votes. I've just kind of known it's strange. We could get into the weeds with it if you want. But I never associated it with power or with people who were influential. It was rather the people at the margins of these movements that were into this particular way of thinking.
Sure.
And I found out, you know, in 2016 and 17, there started to be murmurings that Steve Bannon was, you know, this guy that we were all getting to know, Trump's advisor, his campaign manager, and then his special advisor in the White House, that he was into this stuff. And I thought that was fascinating as a scholar. It's almost exciting because, you know, you put so much time into studying these things as a professor, and sometimes it means nothing. You know, it's completely irrelevant. That's kind of your right as a professor, is to study irrelevant stuff. But when I heard that Steve Bannon was into it, I thought, I got to learn more about this. And he wasn't talking to anybody about it. So to get to your second question, how I got my foot in the door, it was kind of just grunt work. It was a year's worth of harassing his people with emails and phone calls and texts. And then when I got the slightest bit of receptiveness, when I heard one of his handlers say, yeah, he might be willing to talk to you, I just flew to New York.
Wow.
And you know, put myself at his doorstep, basically. But that first conversation was good. You know, I think he got an impression, at least it was my intention, you know, to let him know that I was actually interested in understanding what he really thinks and trying to go deep. I wasn't actually writing a piece that was about getting him and making him look bad primarily. So I think that came through, and that message just kept coming through. You know, I ended up spending 2 years worth of interviews with him, a bunch on the record, a bunch off the record, and really came deeply. But it was a little bit of luck, some persistence, and then hopefully also sending a clear message to him.
Sure. No, it's fascinating how you're able to get in there. Now, I do want to get into the weeds a little bit on this traditionalism, because it's kind of at least for the first few chapters that I've been able to get through, it's been kind of the ongoing theme there of what traditionalism actually is. And reading about it was kind of fascinating, because when you first read about it and as you kind of break it down and explain what traditionalism is, it doesn't quite sound like something that conservatives or like Steve Bannon or someone like that would actually be supportive of. So it was kind of intriguing how he kind of got linked with this. So we got about 4 minutes here before a break, and we can go into the next segment with it as well. But kind of give us a definition, a breakdown of actually what is the real definition of traditionalism.
So this kind of traditionalism that I'm talking about, capital T, it has as its enemy not big government, not inequality, not injustice. It targets modernity, which is a big nebulous thing for a political ideology to try and target. It tries to return, one's life or society at large to a way of living and a way of being that used to exist before, let's say, the 1700s in some cases. That's kind of in its original form, and rather than talking about everything, I would highlight a couple features. One of them is that traditionalists tend to believe in cyclic time. They don't believe in the idea of progress, in other words. They don't believe that we are going to make a better world in the future than one that has ever existed. They think instead that as time moves forward, it always moves in a cycle, and we're progressively, most of the time, getting worse. We go through ages, and as those ages cycle through, society declines, but at the very, very end of that time cycle, a cataclysmic event comes about, and we're returned from a dark age to a golden age. So it's pessimistic in that sense. It really thinks that the future is going to bring decline for the most part. But it's optimistic in the sense that decline itself, as you see society getting worse, means that we're getting geared up for a rebirth into something better. And that can be pretty radical. It means that for a lot of these people, they welcome things being bad, to speak in kind of plain terms.
Sure.
And they want to see things break apart. So cyclic time is one big defining feature of this way of thinking.
It's very
do I got time to go into more?
Yeah. Well, let's feed off of that for just a second. We'll continue on with it after the break. But in the book, you talk about the 4 different cycles, and it's kind of interesting because as I was reading it, I've had kind of thoughts of, I've seen it as kind of a 3-cycle thing of society, with people that build up a society and put the hard work into it, the grunt force into it, the generation that comes after that continues it, sees what their parents did to build the business, to build the society, to do it, and they continue on with that legacy. But the generation after that's kind of laxated. They don't understand the hard work that went into the building it from scratch to kind of take advantage of it, and things begin to dwindle and crumble, and the cycle rebuilds after they kind of screw it all up. So I've kind of had this philosophy myself. Is that kind of the direction that we're going here? Is that kind of what the traditionalism mindset is?
It could be, yeah. I mean, and one thing that's tricky about all this is that, you have that kind of intuitive way of thinking about some of these ideas, and what can distinguish, someone like Bannon, say, from someone, speaking in the terms that you are there, Andy, is that, Bannon thinks that there's almost a spiritual, religious reason for all of this. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that, in particular, even like ancient Hindu texts, and manuscripts talked about this feature of humanity. And he thinks, more specifically also that we are living right now at the end of one of these cycles, that we are absolutely at the cusp of a dark age, getting ready for a lot of breakdown and calamity until you see
a rebirth.
We're going to see some sort of rebirth.
Yeah, a rebirth, kind of like the phoenix coming out of the ashes and growing again. That's fascinating. Let's go ahead and take a break here real quick. We got Professor Ben Teitelbaum on the line. War for Eternity, the book about Steve Bannon, and it's a fascinating book. We'll get into some more of that when we come back. Talk about the philosophies of Steve Bannon and the inner workings of what's going on. All that and more. Make sure to check it out. It's The Voice of Reason here. You can check us out online, HoosierReason.com, also at Hoosier Reason on all the social media. We got lots more coming up. I know we're getting into the weeds, but we're dorks like that, and that's what we enjoy to do, so stay here.
the voice of reason, with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, it's Andy Hoosier with the Voice of Reason. Fighting for conservative principles seems more difficult all the time. The progressive left seems to find new and creative ways to limit freedom, abuse power, and trample the Constitution each and every day. That's why we need the knowledge, resources, and common sense to push back, and we can help with that. Visit our website at HoosierReason.com. There's some really great stuff for you. You can read the latest blog discussing topical issues and current events. Let us know your thoughts by filling out our monthly survey. Keep track of what I might be doing or where I may be speaking. Listen to the podcast of your favorite guest or show, and check out our latest Voice of Reason product infomercials. Plus, you can find upcoming show schedules and guest lineups to plan your radio listening appropriately. And finally, make sure to become a Hoosier-holic by subscribing to the free newsletter. Stay up to date on the latest news of the show, fun facts of the month, and learn new ways to defend and preserve this great republic. It's all there at HoosierReason.com. Again, HoosierReason.com. Go check it out. Why? Because it's kind of the reasonable thing to do. Hey, it's Andy Hoosier. Want to reach out to the show? A big part of the program is you, and we want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts of the show, maybe a guest we've had on the program, or my favorite, when you disagree with something that I talk about. You can email me at HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com or send us a message through our website at HoosierReason.com. The show's not about me, it's about you. So be heard and be your own voice of reason. Again, email me at HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com or find our contact information at HoosierReason.com. Miss part of the show? Don't worry about it. There's plenty of ways to catch the program, and here's how you can do it. First, make sure to tune in every day right here on your favorite radio station. We're here for you. Second, subscribe to the podcast on any of your favorite sites. YouTube and iTunes, Spotify and Google Play, TuneIn, Podbean, and more. Have the show automatically downloaded to your favorite device. Last, visit our website at HoosierReason.com. You can listen to the podcast, catch our special features, and more. It's the Voice of Reason on radio, TV, and online, helping you defend and preserve this great republic. Hey, it's Andy Hoosier with the Voice of Reason. The show's growing all the time, and as we talk about the big issues of the day, one of the big parts of the program is you. And I want you to join us on the program. Whether you agree, disagree, or just want to relieve some of that political frustration, we're here for you. No matter where you may be watching, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, go ahead and leave a comment on the live stream. Chat with other listeners and let me know your thoughts on the topic. Also chat with us on the Podbean chat room. Just go to our live stream of the show at podbean.com and chat with other listeners. You can also call into the program. Just download the Podbean app onto your smartphone, join the live stream, and call in through the app. This is your show, and we want to hear your thoughts. So go ahead and join us here on the Voice of Reason and the Hoosier Media Network. Hey, miss a show? Don't worry about it. You have plenty of opportunities to watch, listen, learn, and be entertained with the Voice of Reason anytime you want. And here's how you can do it. First, become a Hoosier-holic by going to HoosierReason.com and signing up for the show newsletter to get the latest on the show, upcoming guests, topical discussions, and more. Next, subscribe to the podcast and have the show automatically downloaded to any platform you like to use. You can subscribe through any of your favorite platforms with iTunes and Spotify, Google Play and TuneIn, or you can also go and subscribe directly to our Podbean website. Last, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com, search Hoosier Reason, and subscribe to watch all of our shows, videos, and get notified whenever we're live. All the links and info are at HoosierReason.com. For a schedule of upcoming guests on the program, daily show topics, or to reach out to the Hoosier Media Network, visit us on the website at HoosierReason.com. Or for general inquiries, to be a guest on the program, or to have Andy a guest on your program, email us at HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com. Keep fighting for freedom with us every day right here on the Voice of Reason and the Hoosier Media Network. Now, back to the show.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yes, you are. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. Rebranding the millennial generation one radio listener at a time. I like that. What do you think? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. We're broadcasting all over social media. We have a great opportunity for you to do kind of the chat, talk about the conversation, talk about your thoughts on it, either on the Facebook live feed or on Podbean. We are live streaming on Podbean. If you go to podbean.com, you find the Voice of Reason. You can find us on there. We are hailing out of the flagship of the Big Talker KQM in Wichita, Kansas, all over the country, and growing each and every day, so thanks for that, and we appreciate it very much. We have Professor Ben Teitelbaum on the line with us, author of the Book of War for Eternity, also his previous book, Lions of the North. And as you mentioned, Ben, before, that you've been fascinated with this topic of traditionalism. Talk about the 4 stages that traditionalism believes in, essentially, and why is it that predominantly the far right or the radicals, would, even especially where you study kind of the European radical right, why do they cling on to this traditionalist belief?
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, we'll pick things up. This is actually good to get it in bite-sized segments like this with the commercial break. Let people digest. So we were talking about a time cycle, and the way that these people tend to think about it is that time moves from a golden age to a silver age to a bronze age to a dark age, and then back to gold again, right? In that cataclysmic moment. That's how they read history. That's how they see see things as always moving. We haven't really told anybody yet, I mean, what it is that they think is golden and what they think is dark. What is it that gets worse over time? Mm-hmm. And in their mind, there are really 2 things that would define a golden age. One is that it is more spiritual. So religion and spirituality and their ideal society are treated with utmost importance, take precedence over everything. And similarly, that in that type of society, there is no mass of people, right? There's not one homogenized global society, but instead societies, internally and amongst each other are going to have real boundaries and real borders. That's part of this ideal. As that time cycle goes forward, as you move from gold to silver to bronze to dark, all of those features that I just mentioned slowly disintegrate. In place of spirituality, people get more and more obsessed with material goods and material pursuits, and also distinctions between people, hierarchies within society and differences among societies. That all disintegrates, and you end up in a world with no borders, and not just like national borders like we're used to talking about, but no borders in any way, no borders between, men and women, no borders between different social roles. We're all just put into one large group that is pursuing material. That's what they say the essence of the Dark Age is. So, having said that, I think you might start to see how this could appeal to someone who's opposed to immigration, who's opposed to globalization. And in the case of Europe, you're also looking at, let's say, the European Union. You're looking at what is happening in the world of geopolitics, and in their minds, these most recent decades and centuries have led to larger and larger political entities that are trying to iron out differences among people. So the European Union is taking the place of local nation states. In their mind, the United Nations is this global force. The WHO has become a topic of conversation recently. And for Bannon, he sees a sort of union between, American global capitalists and China in particular. That he really sees China as being, through its labor, being a force for homogenizing the whole world and integrating all the world into one kind of network.
Interesting. I'll tell you what.
This is a sign of the dark age.
Sure. Hold that thought 1 second here. We got to take a bottom of the hour break. We'll continue that when we come back, because it's now we're getting into the point of where are we right now and where they see us moving forward from here as well. Professor Ben Teitelbaum, author of the book War for Eternity. We're in philosophy class today, and guess what? I'm loving it because I geek out on this. We'll continue it when we come back. Your thoughts and comments all over social media, right here on radio, TV, all over the place. Stay here.
With Andy Hoosier.
Hey, it's Andy Hoosier. While you listen to the delightful broadcast of The Voice of Reason, don't forget to check us out and follow us on all of our social media sites. Whether you're using Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Minds.com, or Instagram, we're there for you. Find us at Hoosier Reason on any of your social media platforms. You'll see special commentary, links to the articles and news that we use on the show, and videos of the broadcast. Plus, you can directly send us a message on social media during the show to let me know your thoughts. Many already do, and it's a great chat room for all of our great listeners. viewers. And you can always sign up for the Patreon site to get exclusive content, maybe hear show products before we air them on the radio, and a lot more. And when you support us on Patreon, you also help the show be able to fight for conservative values each and every day. So it's a win-win. Just find us at Hoosier Reason on all of your social media platforms, or you can find a link to all of our social media sites on our website at HoosierReason.com. We know you're on social media already, so bring some reason into your day. Why? Because it's kind of the reasonable thing to do.
The Hoosier Media Network is way more than just the voice of reason. It's your source to find numerous different online talk shows, podcasts, TV, and radio programs, all in one simple online location for you. From political talk to health talk to whatever you may be interested in, we're here for you. And I tell you, it's growing every day. Catch Tracy Maxfield with her podcast, Engage, Educate, and Empower, discussing mental health issues in children and teenagers. From bullying, teenage suicide, addiction, ADHD, and so much more, learn from Tracy and her guests about symptoms, signs, and ways to talk to your children, plus so much more. Having battled depression, being the author of the internationally acclaimed book, Escaping the Rabbit Hole, and being a retired nurse, Tracy is kind of the go-to on the subject. Make sure to find her on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, along with her website at tracymaxfield.com. Also, make sure to tune into the weekly podcast Jump, Pivot, and Roll with Shannon Stiles and Rachel Murphy. Taking that next big leap of faith is hard. Trying to write a book, maybe struggling with a relationship, looking to take that next big career step. What's stopping you? There's a lot of big questions there, and they're questions that Rachel and Shannon want to help with you each and every week. It's Jump, Pivot, and Roll on any of your favorite podcasting sites and on Facebook and YouTube. All of these shows and a heck of a lot more can be found on the Hoosier Media Network Facebook and YouTube channels. Make sure to follow and subscribe to check them out today. Follow all the shows, and if you have any inquiries, check us out at HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com. Hey, miss a show? Don't worry about it. You have plenty of opportunities to watch, listen, learn, and be entertained with the Voice of Reason anytime you want. And here's how you can do it. First, become a Hoosierholic by going to HoosierReason.com and signing up for the show newsletter to get the latest on the show, upcoming guests, topical discussions, and more. Next, subscribe to the podcast and have the show automatically downloaded to any platform you like to use. You can subscribe through any of your favorite platforms with iTunes and Spotify, Google Play and TuneIn, or you can also go and subscribe directly to our Podbean website. Last, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com, search Hoosier Reason, and subscribe to watch all of our shows, videos, and get notified whenever we're live. All the links and info are at HoosierReason.com. Oh, hi. You know, conservative messages now are more important than ever before. Election season, state legislative issues, and a rise in the radical left socialist progressive agenda. What we really need now more than ever before is knowledge and wisdom. That's where we come in. Hi, I'm Andy Hoosier with the Voice of Reason, and I'm your voice for reasonable talk, conservative commentary, great guests and entertainment on radio, TV, and the internet. It's time to bring some common sense back into the discussion. National issues, state legislative issues, no matter where you may be, upcoming elections, and a heck of a lot more, we can bring traditional values, constitutional principles, and local activism back. And here's what you can do. First, follow us on all the social media platforms at Hoosier Reason. You can watch the live stream of the show, leave comments, and even call into the program. Second, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on all of your audio devices, from iTunes and Spotify to Google Play and TuneIn. Make sure to subscribe to have every episode automatically downloaded so you don't miss a single episode. Third, make sure to visit our website at HoosierReason.com. You can catch our monthly blog talking about deeper discussions, see who's coming on the program, plus you can sign up for our free monthly newsletter to catch the latest on the show, monthly topics, upcoming interviews, and more. It's time to be that local activist again. That's what the Voice of Reason's all about. Why? Because that's kind of the reasonable thing to do. And it's time for you to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hey, it's Andy Hoosier with the Voice of Reason. The show's growing all the time, and as we talk about the big issues of the day, one of the big parts of the program is you. And I want you to join us on the program. Whether you agree, disagree, or just want to relieve some of that political frustration, we're here for you. No matter where you may be watching, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Go ahead and leave a comment on the live stream, chat with other listeners, and let me know your thoughts on the topic. Also chat with us on the Podbean chat room. Just go to our live stream of the show at podbean.com and chat with other listeners. You can also call into the program. Just download the Podbean app onto your smartphone, join the live stream, and call in through the app. This is your show, and we want to hear your thoughts. So go ahead and join us here on the Voice of Reason and the Hoosier Media Network.
When Reason Meets Radio. You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yes, you are. Welcome into it as we are having the deep conversation of the evening. It makes your mind explode sometimes, but you know what? That's what we're all about. So welcome into it. We're broadcasting all over the place, radio, TV, social media, also the podcast. Actually, if you want to message me, you can message me or you can email me, HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com. I've been getting a ton of emails, a couple of them asking, Andy, where do I get the podcast? We're literally on any type of podcasting platform that you want. Between TuneIn, iHeart, Apple, Google Play, Spotify, we're on all of them. So you can go just find the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. You can subscribe, have it automatically downloaded, or of course you can go right to the source of it at podbean.com, or you can just go to the website and you can see all the podcasts right there as well at HoosierReason.com. All right, we have some more time, and I know we've been geeking out. I don't want to spend too much more time on this because people glaze over a little bit, and I know it's kind of deep, especially for radio, but it fascinates me, which is why I enjoy it. Professor Ben Teitelbaum, author of the book War for Eternity, also Lions of the North, was the last book back in 2017. And to recap this, and before we kind of move off the topic of traditionalism, you talked about the four phases of, or the four cycles, I guess, of what society would kind of be in. My curiosity is if at the golden age we believe in the spirituality, not so much the materialistic, then how does it jive when it comes to, let's say before we even get to it, if Steve Bannon is or is not a traditionalist, or those that do believe in traditionalism, how does it coincide when it comes to capitalism and being successful maybe financially, or the status in society based on consumeristic goods and a supply and demand type of market? How does traditionalism and capitalism work together?
Well, they don't work together especially well, to be frank. But we really haven't gotten to Bannon, because Bannon is not just a sort of doctrinaire traditionalist.
Sure.
There are very few people who are. He took everything that we just described and kind of made his own version of it, which is to be honest, is very, very common for most people these days who would affiliate with all this stuff.
Okay.
But where we might see its influence is the fact that, yes, if you ask Steve Bannon, do you believe in capitalism? No doubt. Yes, absolutely. But there's a difference between him and, say, I don't know, Jeff Flake in Arizona, or some of these other people on the right, in that he doesn't want to see capitalism, take the top position in society. He doesn't actually want the creation of wealth in the economy to be the number one thing we do. A lot of our conversations dealt with the fact that he doesn't like the idea that a lot of people treat the United States and nations as just being economies, just being economic activity, taking place in an area. That he thinks you need to see economic activity and trade subordinated to national solidarity, to patriotism. That's why he's more for tariffs. He's more for protectionism. He doesn't want, American companies going global and rogue to escape American society and tax laws and things of that nature. So it's in when you get to that level of detail with his economics, there's where you see the influence of this particular school.
So do you think that's maybe where him and President Trump split ties, because President Trump, being a businessman, being very successful financially, liking the trade, liking to do the global thing, maybe that's where they kind of ended their relationship? Because I know that he was booted out of the White House, and I don't know what their relationship is now, but is that maybe where some of the uncomfortableness happened in the White House?
It could. Of course, Trump has been pretty aggressive toward China with tariffs, for example. And Steve Bannon loves that, of course. But a sort of parallel expression of all this has to do with foreign intervention, let's say military intervention. And where things really went bad for Steve in the White House was when he started arguing with Jared and Ivanka about military intervention in Syria. In the same way that he does not want to see, American capital and production just swirling around the world, he doesn't want to see American military intervening in all of these other places. And so when in Syria there was this gas attack on children, apparently, Ivanka, Trump's daughter, was really that eventually occurred. Saying we have no business there, and behind all this is also an idea that you really only under extreme cases should you intervene in another nation's dealings, and that really was the beginning of the end. It wasn't long after that discussion that he was off the National Security Council, and then simply out of favor and dormant in the White House until he eventually leaves.
Sure.
Right. So there was a divide there. Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting. So talk about Steve Bannon himself, because we really even haven't gotten to that yet. With his, as you said, kind of more traditionalistic beliefs, where does he believe we are in the cycles right now? Are we in the dark ages starting to go into another golden age, or where does he think we are?
Right now, he really thinks that we are at the very end of a dark age, right? We've seen, huge collectivities, huge organizations grow up around the world. Globalization has been trying to make a global homogenized community in his mind, but we've seen it break down, right? Trump came in and he started shrinking the power of the federal government. The European Union is in turmoil. And with the coronavirus, he looks, at the World Health Organization, he looks at China, and he sees that their mandate and their power and their endorsement globally is now under attack. So, in his interpretation, this was prophesized, and what we're going to see is large entities become fractured. And he's happy about this, of course.
Sure. Well, it makes sense. I mean, right.
All break down.
Sure. I mean, seeing it globally, I mean, we see Brexit happen with the European Union breaking apart. We see down in, Central America, we see a lot more conservative populist presidents rising up. Argentina or Brazil, I believe, was one where we see some of those rise up. So we're seeing kind of a transitional movement globally, not just in the United States with President Trump with the conservative populist mentality, but globally we're seeing a lot of this stuff begin to say, you know what, to heck with the European Union or this regional government, we're going to go back to our own sect and just kind of do our own thing because you guys are messed up and we don't want any part of it. So I guess that is a big transition globally in society.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is part of the story of our decade. Any political scientist will tell you this is what's new right now. So, to him, this is all part, religious texts that are thousands of years old predicted this.
Wow. That's fascinating. I've never heard of the mentality of the traditionalism in that sense before, and really what he thought, because for most conservatives that don't follow politics a whole lot, but maybe just kind of follow it here and there, hear Steve Bannon just say, oh, Breitbart News, oh, okay, he worked with Trump, but then it was the whole white supremacist nationalist thing. So I guess the big question is now that you've sat down with him and you've talked to him and like you said, tried to really understand what he's all about, is Steve Bannon a white nationalist, and does he segregate people based on religion or based on the color of their skin or based on their ideologies because of this traditionalist mentality?
Religion is a little tricky.
Sure.
But the original answer is no. That's not to say that this isn't pretty radical stuff. That's not to say that this isn't different. Those neo-fascist, Nazi, and all that stuff, I think they come from a lot of commentators looking at this guy, knowing that he is really far outside of the mainstream, and just kind of grabbing the closest word and label that they kind of know to put on him.
Well, they're very simplistic in the mainstream media.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's quick, and it's fire, and it gets a lot of attention. But it's inaccurate. Again, it doesn't mean that the truth that he's just sort of leave it to Beaver conservative is just completely misunderstood. But it's wrong to call him that. It's inaccurate to call him that. Let's put it that way.
Sure. We're running just a couple minutes before we got to take a break here, but if you could sum up Steve Bannon in a sentence or two, whether it's just deep or philosophical or unique or misunderstood, how would you try to describe someone like a Steve Bannon?
Paradoxical. One of the strangest, most difficult to understand people I've ever been around.
Really?
Andy, I'm so serious.
Wow.
This guy is complicated.
Very interesting. I mean, and we got just a couple. If you got time, can you stick over with one more segment with us?
Sure.
Perfect. We got just a couple minutes here, but talk about one of the stories. You're meeting with him, maybe one of the first encounters that you sat down with him, and just how he maybe blew your mind or talked about something that you didn't expect him to really talk about.
Oh, wow. Right now, before we go to break.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's tease that. Let's think about that one for a second. I do want to switch gears just for a second because we do have just a minute, and I don't want to get back into another deep one. But your other book, Lions of the North, this is where you kind of tied itself in. And as being a professor in Colorado, we've talked about this many times before, but you travel back and forth from Europe quite a bit. And I love it when you come on because it gives me the excuse to play stuff like Amon Amarth with my Viking metal because I really enjoy that. Because this has kind of been your background, your focus of interest, has it not?
Yes, it has. It has. Music and politics, I should say,
Sure.
Together.
How many times have you gone over there and really gotten into the political movements over in Europe in that region?
Oh, I've been studying it for 10 years. I mean, a good chunk of that time I've been, on the ground. And I've spent a couple years straight just following politics in Scandinavia. Trying to be there in person for, street activism and protests or interviewing politicians who are, doing kind of the day-to-day work in capital parliaments and things like that. But, I keep going back. You get addicted to this. I think we all probably know that if there's something that you understand well, if it's a trade, a craft or something, or if you have insight to a historical moment, you want to keep doing it. You don't want to let go of that knowledge. So I'm addicted. Yep.
It's addicting for sure. All right, we got one more segment here, Professor Ben Teitelbaum. When we come back, we'll talk about an interesting story with a one-to-one sit-down face with Steve Bannon. We'll do that when we come back here on The Voice of Reason. Wrap it up a Monday afternoon. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, it's Andy Hoosier. While you listen to the delightful broadcast of The Voice of Reason, don't forget to check us out and follow us on all of our social media sites. Whether you're using Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Minds.com, or Instagram, we're there for you. Find us at Hoosier Reason on any of your social media platforms. You'll see special commentary, links to the articles and news that we use on the show, and videos of the broadcast. Plus, you can directly send us a message on social media during the show to let me know your thoughts. Many already do, and it's a great chat room for all of our great listeners. And you can always sign up for the Patreon site to get exclusive content, maybe hear show products before we air them on the radio, and a lot more. And when you support us on Patreon, you also help the show be able to fight for conservative values each and every day. So it's a win-win. Just find us at Hoosier Reason on all of your social media platforms, or you can find a link to all of our social media sites on our website at HoosierReason.com. We know you're on social media already, so bring some reason into your day. Why? Because it's kind of the reasonable thing to do. Miss part of the show? Don't worry about it. There's plenty of ways to catch the program, and here's how you can do it. First, make sure to tune in every day right here on your favorite radio station. We're here for you. Second, subscribe to the podcast on any of your favorite sites. YouTube and iTunes, Spotify and Google Play, TuneIn, Podbean, and more. Have the show automatically downloaded to your favorite device. Last, visit our website at HoosierReason.com. You can listen to the podcast, catch our special features, and more. It's the Voice of Reason on radio, TV, and online, helping you defend and preserve this great republic. Hey, it's Andy Hoosier. Want to reach out to the show? A big part of the program is you, and we want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts of the show, maybe a guest we've had on the program, or my favorite, when you disagree with something that I talk about. You can email me at HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com or send us a message through our website at HoosierReason.com. The show's not about me, it's about you. So be heard and be your own voice of reason. Again, email me at HoosierMediaNetwork@gmail.com or find our contact information at HoosierReason.com.
Oh, hi. Conservative messages now are more important than ever before. Election season, state legislative issues, and a rise in the radical left socialist progressive agenda. What we really need now more than ever before is knowledge and wisdom. That's where we come in. Hi, I'm Andy Hoosier with the Voice of Reason, and I'm your voice for reasonable talk, conservative commentary, great guests and entertainment on radio, TV, and the internet. It's time to bring some common sense back into the discussion. National issues, state legislative issues, no matter where you may be, upcoming elections, and a heck of a lot more, we can bring traditional values, constitutional principles, and local activism back. And here's what you can do. First, follow us on all the social media platforms at Hoosier Reason. You can watch the live stream of the show, leave comments, and even call into the program. Second, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on all of your audio devices, from iTunes and Spotify to Google Play and TuneIn. Make sure to subscribe to have every episode automatically downloaded so you don't miss a single episode. Third, make sure to visit our website at HoosierReason.com. You can catch our monthly blog talking about deeper discussions, see who's coming on the program, plus you can sign up for our free monthly newsletter to catch the latest on the show, monthly topics, upcoming interviews, and more. It's time to be that local activist again. That's what the Voice of Reason's all about. Why? Because that's kind of the reasonable thing to do. And it's time for you to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hey, miss a show? Don't worry about it. You have plenty of opportunities to watch, listen, learn, and be entertained with the Voice of Reason anytime you want. And here's how you can do it. First, become a Hoosierholic by going to HoosierReason.com and signing up for the show newsletter to get the latest on the show, upcoming guests, topical discussions, and more. Next, subscribe to the podcast and have the show automatically downloaded to any platform you like to use. You can subscribe through any of your favorite platforms with iTunes and Spotify, Google Play and TuneIn, or you can also go and subscribe directly to our Podbean website. Last, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com, search Hoosier Reason, and subscribe to watch all of our shows, videos, and get notified whenever we're live. All the links and info are at HoosierReason.com.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the program today. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on any of your favorite podcasting sites and have the show automatically downloaded to your phone or computer every single day. Just find us on any podcasting site or go to HoosierReason.podbean.com. And be sure to check out our Patreon site, become the ultimate Hoosierholic, and help us fight for conservative values every day. Why? Because it's kind of the reasonable thing to do. Now back to the national broadcast of the Voice of Reason.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yeah, you betcha. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up the program for today on a Monday. By the way, we have not done it yet on the national broadcast, but if you've listened to the program before, we make our infomercials, our Voice of Reason product line, our satire infomercials, and we have one coming out probably this week. I've been working on it, and we'll come out with that later on this week, so make sure to stay tuned in. And we have an entire week full of awesome guests this entire week, so you're not going to want to miss a single show. And next week is totally booked out, too. And about half of the week after that is totally booked out as well. So it's growing way too fast, and I can't keep up with everybody wanting to jump on the program, which I'm super excited about. But we had to make time for our guest today, and we got one more segment with him, just a few minutes left, as it is Professor Ben Teitelbaum from the professor of at the University of Colorado in Boulder. Also the book War for Eternity, Inside Bannon's Far-Right Circle of Global Power Brokers, the book about Steve Bannon. So we got a few minutes, Ben. Talk about your most interesting meeting that you've had with a one-on-one sit-down with Steve Bannon, or maybe the first time that you talked to him, and your thoughts when you came in maybe with a mindset of what you thought you would expect and what you actually got out of someone like Steve Bannon.
Oh gosh, well, I'm gonna go with just kind of an overall remarkable meeting that we had. So here's the scene. We're outside of Tucson, Arizona. We're in a steakhouse. I think it was called Little Abner's Steakhouse. Really kind of gritty place. Napkins all over the walls. Bench seating. And I'm there with Steve, and he has a lot of family down there. So we're sitting at a table chatting after I'd been interviewing him for like 3 hours. We're both pretty exhausted. You know how he looks. He's unshaven. His hair's all over the place.
Sure.
And the entire time you could tell he was with his people down there, because the entire time we're sitting there, people keep sending him beers. He passes them all to his brother because he doesn't drink anymore. And we're chatting in this environment. He has 3 cell phones he takes with him, and they're setting out on the table. And he lays a napkin over his cell phones, because if he doesn't do that, he's going to be distracted and he can't have a conversation with anybody. They're just going off the whole time.
Sure.
People calling and texting him constantly on all 3 lines. And so we're sitting there having this conversation. Lots of people are coming up. Paying tributes to him, wanting to talk to him. He's very accommodating, gracious with everybody. Conversation we had, though, I always wondered if anyone realized what we were talking about, they would be so weirded out. Because what we were talking about world religions, and he knows a lot about it. The first thing, yes, he's a Catholic, but we kind of got on the subject of Joseph Smith.
Sure.
And Mormonism. And of course, he's not a Mormon, but, when we get into it, he says, oh, there's no way that Joseph Smith was a fraud. There's no way. There had to have been some divine intervention there. So that's an unusual thing to hear a Catholic say.
Sure.
And then we start talking about Islam, and this is the Muslim ban guy, remember? And he starts to say, well, you know what? Sufi Islam, mystic Islam, that's some pretty cool stuff. And really a lot of the conversations about fundamentalist Islam, it would all be fine if all these if the Middle East were dominated by Sufis, because they really understand a lot. This is the conversation we're having in a steakhouse, and as I say, just the contrast of this guy and what we were talking about just lets you know how offbeat he is, how strange he is.
Wow, I love it. I think it's fascinating, and the fact that he, as you mentioned, is educated in the sense, and then takes some of it and kind of makes it his own, is very fast. And I'm sure a lot of people do that as well. But as you mentioned, he's very an interesting character for sure. We got just about a minute left, but it's been an honor to talk to you again, Ben. You're a great friend. I appreciate you coming on the show, especially a lot longer than what we had anticipated. But real quickly, the book that you wrote, once it came out, what was the response from something like at the University of Colorado? Because I know predominantly, I personally like to kind of poke fun sometimes, because it is predominantly a very far left university, and for a professor to be sitting down one-on-one with Steve Bannon, did you get any repercussions from that at all?
Not yet. I mean, not serious ones. It's more been parts of let's say left-leaning media out in the world that have just. There was literally one review of the book that took issue with the fact that I called him Steve.
Wow. Well, how dare you?
That I called him and not Bannon. I mean, and this is a guy, I wish people would just kind of learn to deal with the fact that, these are real human beings, and they have names, and if you want to study, you want to learn about them, you have to get to know them, and you can't treat them like a cartoon character.
Well, that's true. That's what I love about you, is the fact that you actually like to have that dialogue and actually get to know them on a personal level, to understand one way or another. We're out of time, my friend. It's been an honor to have you on the show. We're going to do it again here real soon.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me with you, Andy.
Hey, always a pleasure there. All right, that wraps it up for today. You guys enjoy. It's The Voice of Reason here all over radio, TV, online. Everybody download the podcast. It'll be up soon. Until then, everybody have a great Monday afternoon. Hey, it's Andy Hoosier with The Voice of Reason. Fighting for conservative principles seems more difficult all the time. The progressive left seems to find new and creative ways to limit freedom, abuse power, and trample the Constitution each and every day. That's why we need the knowledge, resources, and common sense to push back, and we can help with that. Visit our website at HoosierReason.com. There's some really great stuff for you. You can read the latest blog discussing topical issues and current events. Let us know your thoughts by filling out our monthly survey. Keep track of what I might be doing or where I may be speaking. Listen to the podcast of your favorite guest or show, and check out our latest Voice of Reason product infomercials. Plus, you can find upcoming show schedules and guest lineups to plan your radio listening appropriately. And finally, make sure to become a Hoosier-holic by subscribing to the free newsletter. Stay up to date on the latest news of the show, fun facts of the month, and learn new ways to defend and preserve this great republic. It's all there at HoosierReason.com. Again, HoosierReason.com. Go check it out. Why? Because it's kind of the reasonable thing to do.